Hey everybody, it's Mike over here from Growtopia, and I want to do a little special video for today. It's the end of the year, it's the end of the season. The season never really seemed to stop because we are still growing stuff. We got the Scotch bonnet peppers that are still small behind you. I got a planter of yellow plum tomatoes, and I got some brassicas on the shelf down below. I'll show you that quick. Here's the yellow plum tomatoes, Scotch bonnets with some basil. And we got some brassicas down below. So I did a little rearranging in here, getting ready for literally next month. Actually, getting ready for in the next few days is where the starting to do your seeds is going to take off like wildfire. Um, so it's kind of funny because it's like a lot of people have asked me like, oh, you're done, your plants and stuff, and I'm like, yes and no. I'm not running. I don't have tomatoes and cucumbers running. I got a chair that won't stop rotating. I feel like fucking Austin Powers over here. I feel like fucking Dr. Evil. The fucking thing won't stop fucking rotating on me. Fucking stay. Oh. Anyway, so get to the point here. So yeah, like obviously I don't have those, but I got like the brassicas, the lettuces, the kales and stuff like that, the romaine that are growing. I got carrots in there. I haven't harvested them yet. Carrots can take a while, so carrots are something that's you kind of almost want to grow them constantly, but they like really, 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 really loose soil. They don't like frozen soil, such as the greenhouse right now. So, and I tried looking in there for some carrots last night, and there was nada. So that's fine. Who knows? Just I'll leave them, and let them do their thing. Unfortunately, they are sitting in a planter that I prefer to have other stuff growing in it that's going to go outside into the garden, but oh well, whatever. So, do a little recap on things for this season, just to throw that out there as my first season of really going balls to the wall with planting. I always did things small for years, always small and contained, and in this year alone, I just like went nuts. I just once I learned how to make the beds with the tomato trellis with the strings. I mean, it just amplified so many things because it's not just tomatoes that like the strings. You got tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, beans, peas. They love the strings too because they climb right up it. So I learned a lot of different stuff this year. I've learned a lot of things. I've made a lot of mistakes. I've made a lot of interesting improvements over certain things. So basically, what I really want to kind of get towards everybody, a lot of things I learned and a lot of things I screwed up. One of the things I learned was don't always listen to everything you hear. Um, there's times even I'm wrong with stuff as well. But the one thing you want to listen to is yourself. If you if you come up with a book, okay, you get a book, doesn't have to be this one, could be any kind, and you want to log everything. This, as I say, is always as I call it, the Bible, because basically it's a book that I read from with writing in it that will constantly further and further help me accelerate and grow more and more better. On these pages of this book, there's different sections. This whole top section here, if you guys are new to the channel, like, subscribe, share it with your friends and family. New Year's is going to be really interesting. That's when I'm going to be dropping some tomato seeds into my pods and starting to grow my tomatoes and several other plants. So please like, subscribe, share it with your friends and family, follow, and let's keep moving along. See here, it's like this is just talking about the months, the plants, and then any little information. Like I'll read off a few of them. So like let's start with this one here. The top one here, I have is jalapenos, right? So I have the temperature for the mat that they like. So I have 80 to 85 mid-January. Sensitive to cold temp. Transplant when nighttime soil temp is above 60 degrees. Soil must be moist. Need 16 hours of grow lights. I changed the timer on the thing for 16 hours. Germination 7 to 21 days because those are Scotch bonnets. um, After that, no growth, reseed, and repeat steps. So after 21 days, if there's no germination, then I basically just reseed and keep moving. Let's see. Let me throw out another one. Celery. We start that in February. Heating mat 70 to 75. Grow lights all day. Moist soil. So for wherever the celery is, they're going to have the grow lights on 24 hours a day. Now, which I find really funny, and you could use grow lights. You don't have to use grow lights. Grow lights definitely do amplify things. Yes, there's going to be an expense on electric and stuff, but I have not noticed that much of an uptick in my electric. I probably will shortly with all the Christmas lights and decorations constantly going 24 hours a day, but I haven't really noticed much at all. But sometimes they'll use grow lights, they don't use grow lights. If you have a place where you have natural sunlight and the place is warm, that's perfect. This is in a spare bedroom in my house. It's a small room. It's got a long baseboard on it. This room is usually always warm because it is such a small room. So that's why this worked out really perfect to put a nursery in here. Let's see. Because I can control things a lot better in here. I can control the temperature, in here versus like if it was in my garage that's cold right now. But not everybody can sacrifice a room in their house to grow their plants in, so everybody's different, right? Let's see. But yeah, like with the grow lights, if you don't want to use them or run them, just make sure you have some sunlight. Alright, let's move on. Now what's funny is I have on here is March, right? So I have March on here for tomatoes. Now the thing is with the tomatoes, I put down needs a full heat mat. 6 to 8 days to germinate. 75 to 90 degrees. Take cover off every 2 days. Move to greenhouse once they touch the lid. Once soil temp is warm, plant mid-May. Soil must be below the leaves for proper... Yeah, soil must be below the leaves, right, for proper planting depths. Now, what's funny is I have something in here that says stop flower before transplant. Now, I never did any of the cutting of the flower, but what I did do was that I left them in the trays. And when their leaves literally touched the top of the tray is lit. Oh, I'll grab one and show you. So these are the pod holders, pod trays that I use. Okay, I like them. They're big. You can get 15 plants inside of it, and these are, like I said, the covers. Now the covers, the plants are sitting basically almost right here at the height. So once they touch the top of this lid, then I take them and they go into the greenhouse. Hence why it says on here, take the cover off every 2 days. You just need it to kind of vent a little bit. So what I would do is, basically, I would mark down on what day who gets their lids taken off on what shelf. So if it's all of them, which I try to do to get like, a certain day, pick that day and take the lid off. You take the lid off for the day, you let them kind of vent out a little bit, and then if they need more water, you have more water. If not, with the lids on top, they stay moist a lot longer, and I got 2 vents that you can open and close. If you guys want to know where I got these, I got them off of Amazon, and you just drop a question in the description below, and I'll post you the link. All right. Same thing with all this stuff. The grow lights and the heating mats I got off of Amazon. Oh. So that's what's funny. That's what I have in here for the tomatoes is March. But I had talked to a farmer and he had told me he starts on New Year's. So, and reason why he starts on New Year's is by the time he goes to put the plants in the ground, they're ready to take off. And the reason why I go from I put it in the greenhouse and then outside is just in case if the temperatures outside aren't warm enough for, let's all of a sudden we get like a cold snap. I don't want to lose like a bunch of plants. So I'll leave them in the greenhouse, and then once they get like almost a foot tall, then I brought them outside, and that's exactly what I did. So yeah, so this here just tell me basically every single month, April, cucumbers and squash, carrots in a raised bed, more jalapenos, potatoes, put them in buckets in April. 3 weeks before last frost, cover in 3 inches of soil from eyes or direct roots. I have a container somewhere in here with a bunch of eyes that I got from a bunch of tomatoes and potatoes. I let them dry out, and this is basically what I have right here. This is my seed stock. So what I did was I took the potatoes, right, and I cut all the eyes, so each has a separate piece. And you can see that they're still alive on top, and they're just sitting in here, a whole bunch of them, just waiting for the soil to get a little warmer. And then I go to my potato bags, and then I just seed them. But my potato bags still have potatoes growing inside of them anyway, so very good. And I got 2 more bags. I'm going to be doing beets. If you guys didn't know, beets, anything that's a bottom dweller likes loose soil, like the potatoes and the carrots and the beets and the radishes and the turnips and the parsnips. But with beets, each beet plant is 1 beet. So if you want a lot of beets and you like beets, you're going to need to plant a lot of beets. So the way I'm going to be doing my beets this year is I got 2 grow bags. And I'm going to basically try to grow them very close to each other. So I can basically hopefully try to have a constant harvest all season long. So 1 bag is going to get planted X amount of time. And then once I see the leaves pop up above the surface, then I'm going to start the next bag. And then by that time, that first bag is ready to harvest, take it all out, and then throw seeds in that bag. Then that bag will be, a week or 2 behind, hopefully, so that I can kind of keep like a constant harvest going. So I don't run into the issues that I had this year. This year I want to see if I can definitely do better with a lot of different plants. Some of the things I screwed up on this year, we'll go through that instead of reading this. I had a lot of positive this year. I had a lot of learning I've come across. The book, it was definitely a big help. Even going down to the point of actually drawing up the plans inside of it, showing exactly where everything's going to go inside the greenhouses, which is really great because it keeps me on track, so that I don't get screwy in my head on where stuff's going to go. And then I also learned like certain things grow better in the greenhouses than they actually do outside. Like take for an example my peas. I have peas in 17-degree weather inside the greenhouse growing like wildfire. Kale, that's doing the exact same thing. Romaine and lettuce, that's doing the exact same thing. Growing inside the greenhouse in the teens like it's nobody's business. And they're not winter crops, meaning like they're not crops I bought that are seeds that do better in winter. There's just seeds. Like I got Lincoln peas that are just growing in there. So crazy. Such as the celery, the basil, the arugula, and the cilantro do great inside the shaded greenhouse in the cold. Oregano, rosemary, and parsley doing phenomenal in the greenhouse, in the sun house, in these temperatures. Onions, garlic, I got going. The garden bean did really good, and so did the dragon tongue that's in the corner. But unfortunately, that whole right side of that greenhouse is done anyway, so there's nothing growing on over there. And then I did the plan of the actual garden, where everything goes. You guys can see that there. There's a lot of random information there. And then I started having a situation going on where I did not know when, what where things went and what is going to be ready for harvest and where did I put it. Well, that's where the floor plans came into play. But then the next thing was literally, when do I harvest it? Was basically the one thing I heard over and over again on certain things. Now, tomatoes are pretty obvious, but tomatoes, beans, peas, cucumbers, peppers are extremely easy to tell because they're fruit, right? So their fruit is very easy to tell when they're ready for harvest. Well, the problem was other things that were bottom dwellers that I didn't know when they were ready for harvest, such as the turnips and the radishes. Well, let me make it really simple for you, okay? If you're wondering that same question, when they're ready for harvest, you can tell. They're coming out of the soil, and they come out. The turnips, they come out of the soil and they're purple, especially if they're purple top turnips. Or you can do what I ended up doing, which is extremely time consuming, is now coming up with a data log where I data log every single thing I do, movement, etc. Such as what we did. This chair rotating is driving me up the wall over here. Fucking stop. So everything I did, I keep track of it. I keep track of the plant, the temperature that it was growing at, the sow date, the shelf that it was on, which means that it's in here, the day that it germinated, the first time I saw its head pop above the soil. That means that I check my nursery twice a day. I check it before I go to work, I check it when I get back, and then sometimes I'll check it before I go to sleep at night. Then I got GH date, which is the greenhouse date, the date that it gets transplanted into the greenhouse, and then the zone within the greenhouse. So if we go back to that page that showed the inside of the greenhouses, if I'm putting it on the bottom left planter of the shade house, as soon as I walk in, the first planter right there, I call that zone 1. So that would be zone 1. Then the trans date and zone would be is when it gets transplanted to where it's going from there. So if it's going to stay in the greenhouse, I would write, I wouldn't write anything there. I'd just leave it as is because I know that it's going to stay in the greenhouse. But in something that's going to be moved outside to a different area, I'm trying to find something on here. Let's say like the barley and the sweet oat I was doing last year, or not, sweet oat I did this year, both of them last year. My brain's already gone. My brain already left. It's already 2025. That one's, I put down the zone that it went into out in the garden. And then I have estimated harvest date, and then I got harvest date is the last 2 boxes. The estimated harvest date you get from usually on the back of the seeds. So like, for example, let's take... Okay, so let's take the lettuce butter crunch. And then also depending on what greenhouse it goes into. If it's going into a greenhouse, because there's 2 of them. There's SH for shade house, and then there's SU for sun house. In case you guys are wondering how I decipher the greenhouses. But anyway, so now I was in my head. I was thinking, I'm like, did I harvest any of this lettuce yet? I don't think so. But anyway, here's a prime example. So I got butter crunch lettuce. So the temperature for the germination of it was 70 to 75, and it's also temperature that it likes. But for some reason it's been currently liking everything below, so pretty good. I planted it on October 1st of 2024 on shelf 12. So it was inside the tray, and it was on shelf 12, which is the shelf over there. On 10/6, no, I'm sorry, on 10/9 of 24, just about 8 days later, it germinated. So that was quick. So about a week. a little bit more than a week. It germinated. Now the other thing too is that when I when I put the name down under it in parentheses, I put how many plants that I did. So when I first did it, I planted three of them, and only one germinated. It is what it is. I ended up putting it into the greenhouse not too soon after. I put it in at 10/16/24 into the shade house in zone 3. Now, estimated harvest date. From the day of germination to the day of harvest was 65 days is the estimate, which I had then did the math on it and comes out to December 13th of 24, which is not that far off because today is the 22nd, and I think it was around that time that I was able to harvest some, but I didn't, and I never wrote down a harvest date. Alright. This is perfect because it keeps track of everything. And then but the thing is you got to really stay on top of it. So on the right side of the page is basically everything that I'm growing and going outside. And then on the left side of the page is everything that was growing outside coming back in. So for a prime example, go back to this page before. On the right, like I said, on the right side is planting. On the other side is called overwintering. So right at the top one is I have my banana plant. Orchard date. Repotted 9/24 of 24. Fall temperature. It was 70 degrees in the greenhouse because I had moved them into the greenhouse for a short period of time, but it was 60 outside. Greenhouse date. It was inside the sun house on 9/24/24. So basically I took it out of the ground, I repotted it, and I threw it into the greenhouse, basically for overnight. Then it came into the nursery on 9/25 of 24. And at the time that it entered the nursery, it was 10 inches tall. So I keep track of that because I want to know the growth of it and where things are actually going with the plant. Now when it goes back outside, there'll be a record of it from when it left the nursery to the greenhouse and then out into the orchard. A lot of things that I have that I brought inside, I do not have anymore. So there are some things that will survive and there's some things that won't. How do I keep track of it if it's alive or not? I basically, I'll just go down the line and I'll just put an X on it for the spring date because this is where I'll put in the information for the spring date. I won't write in a new entry. I'll just write down spring date and temp, and then they'll get a new entry down the line. But like I have Tiny Tim 1, 2, and 3, which was 3 different containers. They weren't doing too good. I planted them really way too late, and they ended up dying off, unfortunately. So it kind of sucked. But Tiny Tims are a determinate tomato. They only grow to a foot tall. So, but this is definitely something everybody should really do because this is the only way you're going to ever keep track of your stuff. And then next season, you can go, oh, it only took 4 days for it to germinate. 10 days later, I harvested a bunch of crop. It's a really great system to have, and the best way of keeping track of your stuff. Let's see, things that I've learned not to do. Plant stuff late in the season. Always make sure you plant everything early enough in the season. Don't plant anything late. The problem with planting late is you have a later harvest. So I ended up having like, I think 20 some odd tomato plants that were still growing that ended up dying due to the cold. So I could have had a bigger harvest this year if I planted them early. So that's where January comes into play. I don't know what just got in my nose. I feel like I got like a jalapeno seed in my nose. Oh my, must have been something hot I just grazed my hand on. There's that. Second of all is listening to bad advice from people telling me to trim my plants. Don't trim your plants. I say it over and over and over again, okay? You're stupid. if you trim your plants. I did it. My mother did it. We did it for years. Until I finally experimented with 6 tomato plants that were trimmed and 12 tomato plants that weren't trimmed. And which ones had a larger harvest? The ones that weren't trimmed. I mean, significantly larger harvest. I have trays. If anybody that's new to the channel, yet again, look through some of the older videos. These aluminum trays, full of tomatoes from only a few plants. Out of 20 some odd plants, I think it was only like 2 or 3 tomato plants, full tray. It's crazy. It's a lot of tomatoes for 2 people. So it's really, really tough. So with that being said, don't trim your plants. Be careful with fertilizer. I've over-fertilized by pure accident. Best fertilizer to use is the least amount as possible. I'm going to show you what stuff that I run. This is eggshell powder. You get it from literally eggshells. Take your eggs, you collect them in one of those trays, or any tray in particular. Rotating chair is starting to drive me up the wall. I'm just trying to grab stuff out of here so I can show you guys different stuff here. Anyway, so you take the you take your voice and throw it out the window. What you want to do is you want to take your brain cells too and throw them out the box too. Fucking just rotating chair is fucking me up over here. The hell was that? Oh god. If I get this all over me, it's gonna look like I'm covered in cocaine. What the fuck fell back there? No idea. Chair trying to kill me. Oh, it's a spoon. That's right. I need a spoon for digging out the shit. Isn't there another one I got? Alrighty. Now we got all the fertilizers and shit. So, as we rotate around, so the thing with fertilizing, what did I do wrong? Well, I listened to too many people tell me how much fertilizer to use, what kind of fertilizer to use. And there's some people out there on YouTube that wants you to spend like $800 a year on fertilizer. We're doing this so we don't have to spend so much money. So how do you combat that? Well, let's go back to where I was getting at. Here's your eggshell, and this is your bone meal. And both of those you can make yourself. Literally from any types of eggshells at all. You leave them off to the side. You throw them in the oven at 350 or whatever when you're cooking food. Wait until they get like a little golden brown inside. Pull them out. Let them cool down. Toss them into a food processor or blender. Everything. Blend them down into literally powder. And this right here is great fertilizer for 90% of your plants. It's got calcium, potassium in it. It's great for your tomatoes. Tomatoes love it. And then over here you get the bone meal. You can get that from chicken bones. That one's a little bit harder to process because it takes a longer time of letting the stuff basically, you got to boil the bones until they get soft, and then you got to bake them so that they're thoroughly, you have to make sure they're dry for a while, like a week or two after you boil them. And then all that bone water that you get, you could add to your plants. So every time you're doing something, you can take it. Like when you clean out the blender that you're using to make your eggshell powder, you clean that blender out, mix some water in it, and then go to your plants and water your plants with that eggshell powder. Same thing with the bone meal. You know, when you're done with the blender and blending of it and stuff, and then you're done with the water that you get from it, go water your plants with it. Don't just dump the waters and liquids down the drain. And if you don't want to water your plants and you have a compost pile, put it on the compost pile. It's going to add all those nutrients and vitamins right into that soil, which then that soil will end up into your garden, which is why you have the compost pile. I screwed up with fertilizing on multiple occasions this year because of multiple people telling me certain things, and I was over fertilizing. So now I don't do that. When I originally started growing stuff in the beginning of the season, before I went balls to the wall with this, I was not using any fertilizer whatsoever when I started my plants. And that's when I've decided to go back to basics. I'm not starting any of my plants with fertilizer. I did experiments on what grows faster with or without fertilizer. It's faster using different fertilizers, which I will show you, versus doing it without fertilizer. But it's all, if you want to use the fertilizer, you don't have to use the fertilizer. Everything I use is safe, it's natural, it's all organic. So I'm not using anything that's got like weird harsh chemicals in it that you shouldn't be using, because you could see it on a lot of the bags. Like there's one bag I saw when I was at the store the other day. I just walked past it and it was like, oh, you need garden blend, whatever it was. I'm not going to call out the name on it, but anyway, when I looked at the back of it for the ingredients, it said petroleum in it, and then it's like in parentheses oil. The fuck. All right. So anyway, this is just an empty container. Some things you got to watch out for as well when you're dealing with fertilizers is the word nitrogen. Certain plants do not like high concentrations of nitrogen. Now when I'm going to plant my tomatoes outside, I got like a sneeze going on from fucking fertilizer. Anyway, this right here is my after flower fertilizer, 2 scoops per plant. This is for tomatoes. But when I go to plant my tomatoes outside, I'm going to use the eggshell powder, and I put basically a teaspoon amount, right, just like that. I put it around the base of the plant. So once you take your tomato outside, let's say this is the top leaf, in case you guys were wondering how you plant your tomatoes. So this is the furthest leaf on the bottom is the clip. When you put the tomato in the plant in the ground, a lot of people just put it like this. It's a problem. Tomatoes don't like to be planted shallow. They like to be planted basically all the way down to about almost an inch or so above that bottom clip. So you basically want them almost like here, roughly. You want the whole base of that plant. So even if your plant was this tall, it's going to be like this, sitting in the soil. Now the reason why is because the whole stem is basically one big root. And the deeper your plant is planted, the better off the plant's going to be. It's going to get nutrients and water a lot better, and it's also going to be a lot stronger. And then if you have the strings, it's even better for the plant, because then as the plant grows straight up, you just add the clips all the way up, and you'll have a perfect plant growing, because it's nice and safely secured and so forth. But like I said, certain things you want to watch out for. Then this right here is actually a mix of bone meal and eggshell powder, and also another fertilizer that's from it's called JP's Secret Stuff, and I mix it all together in a blender, and it's literally 2 scoops per plant once I see the first flower. Oh my god, something's over here bugging me now. So once I see the first flower, that's when I'll put that stuff out there. Till then, nothing. Just the eggshell in the beginning, and let it sit its thing, and then after the flower, I add that, and that's it. But there are fertilizers you have to watch out for, such as this one. This one says it feeds, grow bigger, juicier tomatoes and vegetables. Feeds up to 3 months. Mater Magic. Well, sounds interesting, fine and dandy. but you got to be careful with it because it's an 8 to 5 to 5. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means it's got 8% nitrogen, 5% phosphorus, and 5% phosphate, 4% calcium, 1% sulfur. Now, the problem is that the nitrogen in here is extremely high. It's a large amount of nitrogen. So you gotta be really careful on how much you use a certain thing. I was using this on a couple plants, doing experiments with them, and unfortunately, this was way too much. I did way too much on it. So yeah, the nitrogen level in here I learned really quickly is extremely high in that one. You got to be really careful. Now, a safe one that you can use is from JP's Secret from the Growing Channel. This has got 3% nitrogen, 3% phosphorus, 3% potasse, 5% calcium, 1% magnesium, 1% sulfur, and 0.3% iron. This is a safe one to have as well. It's a little bit more money. It's almost $80 a bag, but I'm literally about, this is what a new bag looks like. Okay, so you can see how much there is inside this bag, and then this is how much I use this season. So I basically use roughly probably a little bit more than half a bag this season. So I know that this bag will make it through next season, and then I have another bag that will last me through another 2 seasons. So even though it's like $70-$80, I'm not buying this stuff all the time. There's guys out there that are spending $800-$900, some of them like a month. Because one of them I was watching, he was like, "Oh yeah, I do this, that, and the other." And I'm like, "Dude, you're out of your mind. It's a lot of money after a while on fertilizer. You might as well just buy shit from the store and call it a day." Then I got this one here from Espomia. This is for your strawberries, your blueberries, and your raspberries. This is pretty good. And I've literally used basically that much down there because I got a lot of different plants. I got 4 strawberry plants out there, blueberries and raspberries all over the place. So you can see basically this is a new bag, and this is what I use. So didn't really use that much, and I figured out what causing me to sneeze now. So I just blew the fertilizer in my face. Maybe my blueberries will get bigger. Get in there. I can't remember what those were. Those I had grabbed from Amazon. Here's another one that I had grabbed is vegetable and tomato fertilizer. I only have 1 bag of this. This is good for like when you're doing soil preparation. I only used a little bit of it. I would say I didn't have any negative results with it, but the odds of me probably using it again, it depends. I can't get it back in the freaking hole. Over here is just a bag of bone meal. I had bought a bag of bone meal in case, because it was getting tough, really tough with the chicken bones. Just trying to, you're spending a lot of time with the oven running, trying to get, to boil them, and then after they're done boiling, then you got to try to run them through the blender, and it could take a long time. So in a pinch, I needed some bone meal, so I had to buy a bag of bone meal, but I try not to go for the bone meal as much as I can. Then I have this one, and this one you got to watch out for. So this one is actually for corn, and it's 7% nitrogen, 6% phosphorus, and 4% potasse. Now, talk about things I learned and I did wrong. Is one of the things I did wrong was I never fertilized my corn, and I never grew my corn in a row. This I mix it in with you mix it in with the topsoil. See, it says Mix in desired amount of water. That's right, water, because it's soluble. Is believed to be compatible with most fertilizers and plant nutrient products. When mixing with other products, it is recommended that a physical capability test be conducted before use. Test small quantities and proportions to field application rates is recommended. Apply 2 to 20 pounds per acre when plants are actively growing or as needed based on your nutrition management program determined from soil and plant tissue analysis or sap analysis for your specific crop. The product is a commercial fertilizer and should be used as part of comprehensive nutrient management program. Even though it's a commercial fertilizer, you can still acquire it just like I did. That's what this is. It's corn fertilizer. Now it's funny, when they say commercial fertilizer, the first thing you're thinking is like dangerous chemicals. No, it's got 90% of what everything else has, just a different rate. Now, the funny thing with the fertilizers is that you'll start noticing they all look alike, and you go, well, what is better? For tomatoes, that 3-3-3 with James is really the best. It's not a lot of nitrogen. Too much nitrogen will kill your plants. Or you could just go for the eggshell powder and the bone meal, and you're a lot safer. But they still need nitrogen, but they can get nitrogen from the soil. That's really about it, guys. I know it the video's almost an hour long, but there was a lot of stuff I learned, a lot of mistakes I did, and the only way you get better at things is you learn from your mistakes. And the biggest mistakes of all was listening to people who don't even have the right to even be trying to help others out there. My results show that, the way that they do things, maybe it works for them. They like a smaller harvest. I don't really know. Things for me work great. There was a thing where people were saying, oh, when the cucumbers are yellow, cut them off. I left it on the plant just for shits and giggles, and it tripled in size. There's another one that says, oh, if your tomato branch touches the ground, you got to cut it off because the tomato is going to die and it's going to catch a disease and it's going to get COVID. No, I left mine on the ground. They actually crawled along the ground and it was spitting off fucking shoots with tomatoes on it. Tomatoes were never rotten. They were literally growing on the ground. They weren't rotten. Nothing was eating them. Nothing went near them. Nothing. Everything just left it alone until I came along and snipped and grabbed them. That was all my tomatoes. My cherry tomatoes, my Cherokee tomatoes, my my yellow plums, my pineapple tomato, my Amish paste tomato did that as well. And that was all just because I had missed the day or putting clips on it, and it grew the plants all of a sudden took off. It was like a week or something. I couldn't get to it with work and everything, and freaking they were just whoosh, on the ground. What's another thing I learned that people could avoid? Oh, watering. Watering is not your friend when you screw up. Keep a plan. If you're doing it with a sprinkler system, make sure it dumps a good amount of water, and it's a soft sprinkler system, not the kind that are on your lawn. Lawn sprinklers are extremely harsh on your tomato plants. The best thing to have is something that has a soft spraying. Amazon sells kits. I have bought multiple kits. I got them all over my property. I hook them up with a hose and I turn them on manually. That's it. In the summer, I try to make sure that when I water evenly. So that means that this season, as we come through, we're going to water every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Now, that allows almost one day between each day of watering, except for on Saturday, because then it's Sunday and Monday with no water, and then we go back on Tuesday. Now, there's a little variation. If it downpours Monday all day long, I'm not talking about a little rain, I mean downpours where you can see like a little bit of ponding, I won't water on Tuesday. I won't water on Wednesday, but I might water on Thursday, depending on what the ground looks like. If it's super saturated, I'm not going to water. But that's only during the spring and the fall. In the summer, you don't want to skip a day. Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, I will water for an hour um, on each zone that I have until it is above like 87, 88 degrees, where it's like up in the 90s. Then I'll water for an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on how hot it is. Because once that soil dries out, that's it. And I screwed up on multiple times where I didn't water, and I'd be looking at my peppers, for an example, and my peppers started shriveling up. Why are they shriveling up? Well, the peppers were shriveling, and the squashes were shriveling up. And come to find out, after I did some research, it's because the fruit doesn't have enough, the plant doesn't have enough water to survive. So what the plant does is it starts actually extracting the water and the nutrients from its fruit that it needs to use to reproduce. So it's very interesting how smart these plants actually really are, that we're dealing with, that they actually are smart enough to go, hey, I can't get my water that I need. I'm going to grab it from something else. So I was seeing all these peppers shriveled up, and like, the hell. Then when I started watering better, and I did it a little bit more frequently, then I started watering like 2 hours in that section instead of just an hour because of the temperatures outside. All of a sudden, those peppers went, whoop, they popped back up like a balloon. So watering is not always your friend when you screw it up. And the last and final one thing I would have to say is be patient. Patience is the hardest thing to do when you're growing stuff, because you want to get out there, you want to fertilize, you want to add water. Don't do it. When the stuff is inside, the biggest thing you got to do is walk away. Walk away. But don't walk away too far. Stay nearby. The same time that I water outside is the same time I water inside. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And Sunday, like today, is the day that I come in and I spend probably a good 4 to 5 hours inside the nursery, and I just go through it. I look at the different plants and I'm checking everything, and then I update. Now I update everything in my book as I go along, as it is. But if there's anything going on or stuff that I want to start growing, Sunday is my day of grow. Sunday is the day that I start growing stuff, unless it's New Year's. So Sunday mornings, I come in here, have my cup of coffee, I look into the book and see, okay, what is today? So let's just flip to a random page. Let's say it's the month of June. June, we could do cucumbers, squash, green beans, melons, and watermelons. We can even do more tomato plants. Sweet potatoes, peppers, eggplant, body flower plants for the tomatoes, such as sunflowers, borage, crimson and clover, lavender, etc., etc. We also have corn we're going to do in June, and peanuts. Yeah, so we've got corn that we're going to be doing. Here we are. We got corn that we're doing in June. I was also curious when I do the last tomato. Tomato looks like the last time. No. This part of June for the tomato is actually, it says transplant time. Plant deep up to bottom of leaves. Plant basil with them as well as marigolds. So I have that entry down there as to when to plant the tomatoes. This isn't always just seed starting. It's also seed starting and when to plant your tomatoes. So, yeah, so basically, keeping a log, keeping track of things, not listening to too much crazy advice. Um, don't rush anything with your plants. Always keep an eye on them and stuff. Keep the log going. I'm gonna sit here and update the log on just the plants that I moved around. Um, that's really about it for today, guys. So like, subscribe, share it with your friends and family. I hope you guys got some interesting information out of this, and we'll see where things go very shortly. We will be having a good growing season very, very shortly with all the stuff we learned this year and all the mistakes that we did and what we're going to fix from there so we don't make the same stupid mistakes. And that is it for today, ladies and gentlemen. Please like, subscribe, share it with your friends and family. Start thinking about what you want to grow this season. Comment below if you have any tips, concerns, questions, or if you want to learn how you can get yourself into a situation like I am, where you're growing and having fun and getting bunches and bunches of free food. And make sure that you take your boring backyard and turn it into something that's worthy. Don't fill it full of garbage and stuff. Grow some plants. Save a lot of money. The amount of money you will save. And it's right there. You can have friends and family come over and, oh man, how many times you go to the store, oh, I forgot to get this, I forgot to get that. You ordered food online, oh, I forgot to order this, that, and the other. Oh wait, I could just step outside. There's my tomatoes, my lettuce, my basil, my celery, my cucumbers, my squashes, everything I need is right there. I don't have to leave the house. Cooking up some steak. I want some steak with some tomatoes and stuff. Boom. Want some potatoes with it? Get some freaking sweet potatoes. And get some French fries. Sure, why not? Grab a sweet potato. Now, like I did last night, took my sweet potatoes, sliced them up, threw them in the deep fryer. So, anyway, guys, that is it for today. Like I said, you guys have a great rest of your December. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and you guys will be seeing me on New Year. Dropping some seed. Later.